Okay, so what I was saying is I need to snap this joint to the center of the eye, and to do that, I need to make sure that none of the manipulator handles are active. And I know that they're not active because none of them are yellow. If I click in the center, if I were to click on a handle, then it would turn yellow. If I click in the center, then they all turn their original color. Okay? So with none of them active, I can hold down V on my keyboard and the middle mouse click and drag next to this rotate pivot that I just showed on the eyeball sphere. Okay, so I'll do that. And it's snapped to the center of the eye now. So if I were to frame that, no matter how I rotate, it's going to be centered. And that's just what I wanted. Okay. Now, I need to place these leg joints correctly. So I'm going to try to use this hip. So I'm going to reference my anatomy book really quick. And it looks as if the hip comes all the way out to about right here on the bird. And again, all I should have to do in this scenario, now that I've got things placed correctly in the Y and Z axes, is all I should have to do is move around this joint. And so actually, I need to actually move this to world before I get too crazy. So let me undo that translate and put the joint back where it was. I need to set my translate manipulator to world so I can move this precisely on the x-axis only. That's the goal. So I move that out to about where the hip joint is, and then I need to keep this portion of the leg, the hip, the upper thigh, and the lower leg in a perfectly straight line. So in this direction, okay? And I need it to be bent this direction, obviously. And that would apply to any rig that you're making. This is a very important note. Because no matter how straight your legs look on your character, you have to have at least a little infinitesimal, whatever amount of bend in that leg. And that will tell that bend is what's going to tell your IK handles which direction the leg should bend. If you don't do that, it's going to choose for itself and it'll be a nightmare. If you do it, it's going to be really easy. So, again, take note of that. Okay, so I need to line up the knee and the ankle by using the rotation of the hip. That's the only way that I can guarantee that these maintain a perfectly straight line front to back. Or I should say side to side. That's probably a better way to say it. Okay, so I'll switch to my rotate tool. And because this needs to be really precise, I press the plus sign on my keyboard to upsize my manipulator so I have more precise control. And you even switch to full screen mode on that panel. You can do that by pressing Control Spacebar. And I'm rotating that into view using the Z-axis. Okay. Now I have my manipulator right now set to gimbal mode. That's not exactly important. So I'm actually going to change that to world because I think that'd probably be more handy at this point. Switch back to this view. I'm going to rotate this out. I'm trying to get the knee to be where I think it belongs. Okay, But I want to keep this ankle where it belongs too. Rotate that out. It pays to be really picky about now. I'm going to turn on my geometry. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now this lower portion I don't have to be as careful about, although it wouldn't hurt to have this be aligned as well. So you might, the ball of the foot. Now I saw one of you guys recently do a double IK handle on there, and I'll be honest, I've never done that. But if that was the case, if you wanted to use the double IK handle on this leg, then you would have to make sure that all four of these joints form a perfectly straight line side to side. And then you would get the correct sort of bend out of your IK handle. Okay, sorry I'm spending such a long time on that part, but it's important. Okay, so I got all four of those placed. Now just by rotating, let me go, I'm going to reference my model again so I don't have it in the way. And then I need to place these joints in the toe. Now, I'm going to duplicate this joint chain, and I'm going to move it so I have joints for this other toe. And I'm going to rotate it into position and then distribute them along the geometry better. Okay. Now sometimes it's useful when you're placing joints to be able to change the size of them. So right now they're so large I can't really tell on these toes how I've lined them up, how well I've lined them up. So if I go to display, animation, joint size, I can change the size of all the joints at the same time, which is pretty handy. I typically will use a value of like, 0.15 is a really common value for me to use, but it also depends on the scale of your model. Okay. So I'm going to place these joints. Also, it can be useful to move a parent joint without moving the children joints. Now, to do that, the easiest way to do it is to hold down D on your keyboard, and then you can move a joint without moving its children. So if I do this, then I can move the joint without moving the children. That can be useful. The other way to do that is just press insert on your keyboard, and that'll switch you to moving the pivot mode, like pivot mode. Okay. So let me continue. I'm going to duplicate this joint. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to duplicate that one. I'm going to duplicate this joint. Okay. Then I'm going to rotate it.